hear an old man with a gray beard by now speak to you. And while you're listening, I just want you to prepare already potential questions you may have, so that we have a, engaging Q&A once I'm done with my quick overview and conversation. Just prepare yourself for that. Having said that, let me just give you a brief intro. I have been a sports fanatic all my life, actively and passively, and as I never was able to become a professional myself, to win a World Cup or something, I thought, after university, I actually start working for sport. Because if I can't get to go to a World Cup final as a player, I may as well go as a spectator and then be paid for it. So I was able to live up to my goal and work 25 years for Adidas. And when Adidas acquired Reebok, I moved to Reebok and spent my last 8 years with Reebok. So 24, 25 years of sporting goods industry around the world, moved 5 times between continents. And my primary background is marketing, brand, but also sales. So the typical front office functions really. Was in executive positions. And in 2014, when I was supposed to go back to Germany, I decided maybe that's it. Turned also 50, which kind of made me think about how to recalibrate the last part of your life. And I decided to leave, and not really sure what I was going to do. Was approached by a lot of young people that actually started their own companies, and was asked to give advice. And I thought, what do you guys need me for advice? I'm an old guy that has corporate experience, and you guys are entrepreneurs. But out of that came a really interesting relationship, and also a very fulfilling second portion of my career, to work with young people on helping them bring their ideas to life in a way that, you don't have to make every mistake that everybody else has done already in your life. So if you get good sorted advice in between, it potentially helps you to be faster, quicker. So I'm also very much about purpose, meaning I don't want to waste my life to just think about things of how a consumer has 10 pairs of running shoes in their closet instead of 5, which was 25 years my life. I think that's not the world we live in anymore. I do believe that purpose is important, and whether it's sustainability, social impact, whatsoever, I think that's part of my mission in life. So I primarily work with people that actually have another purpose than just becoming a viable business in the world. I believe that future is about improving the world versus just using the world. So that's a bit about my background. So I'm an advisor, angel, all sorts of things. And I'm related to Hype for 4 or 5 years already, because I really truly believe that sport is international. It is in every corner of the world. And because it is, we want to make sure we have a network big enough that gives hands for the best ones to actually move beyond the territory they're in. So I very much believe in what Hype is trying to accomplish. Having said that, maybe as an introduction to this actual presentation, I always felt that in my personal experience, that it's easy to have great times and to have enough parties and celebrate how good you've done, how good the world is. But for me, that's not the primary learning that gets you further. The learning actually kicks in if you are in crisis times, when either your own company is short of money, short of demand, or actually the whole market goes through a recession. Because for me, crisis opens opportunity. And that is kind of the insight that I want to share with you in the next 20 minutes or so. Let me see if I can share my screen and get to the presentation. Do you guys see my, you see my screen now? Okay,
yeah,
so
we can see it. Just if you could put it on full screen mode.
Yeah, we'll try. Okay, here we go. That works with you guys?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Very good.
So just a quick agenda. First, I'm already in my intro and background story. I want to talk a bit about 4 startups that I'm related with or connected with in different capacities. One is a digital gig, one is a sport product, consumer goods proposition, one is actually jewelry, and the other one is brown shoes, which is really interesting for
Uli, are you with us?
Yeah, who's frozen?
Yeah, can't hear him. Can't see him either.
Look who's talking, William.
Hey, all right, Timmy, how you doing? Sorry, I was just finishing off my lunch. So-
Good. Uli?
Is Uli sitting in Germany?
Wait, I'll just check with him on WhatsApp. Okay, so he dropped out. He'll join us in a minute. The wonders of technology.
He's back. But he's on mute. Zika.
Yes, I can see. Thank you.
unmute. Do you guys hear me now?
Yes, welcome back.
I'm sorry. I did upgrade my digital platform yesterday, so I should be in a much faster internet connection, and the result is I'm kicked out. So that doesn't work really that well. Let me get back to the screen. Okay. So what I was saying is, I don't know when you lost me, but I said if a crisis hits you at a crossroad, one path will lead you into depression and just business measures of how to survive. The other one potentially opens your eyes and creates a mindset of opportunity, because if everybody feels depressed, the one that isn't depressed potentially has options and ideas how to move about it to get actually to a better place post-crisis. Not saying that it's an easy task to do, but it, for me, very much a mindset proposition that gets you actually through the tougher times. And I promise you that every tough time and every challenge you've gone through is a valuable experience for yourself when the next challenge hits. And the one thing is for sure, life is not only positive. That means challenges will come along, you grow with those, and they'll make you better for the next one. And so let me go through a couple of those examples that I want to talk about. The first one is a digital sports gamification engagement tool. It's called Game On. It actually is kind of a gamification overlay over a screen, and is used and built to be used in bars, sport bars that actually also broadcast sport. Meaning on TVs, you look at your basketball game with a couple of friends, and with Game On, you're able to actually play with others about the game. So whether the free throw actually is in or not, it's not about betting, so it's not about money, but it's a gamification tool. So those guys were a Comcast partner because they were at the Comcast Accelerator last year, and they've really went through, had 20,000 monthly average users, on trajectory to be really a star before COVID hits. The problem for those guys was, well, when COVID hit, first of all, there was no more sports broadcast, and then all bars closed too. Yeah. So their distribution was pretty much not existent anymore. And so if you hit with such a situation, depression can be the outcome. But those guys were smart enough, sitting down and deciding immediately. Obviously, you need to go through a couple of business decisions, check your cash and figure out how you reduce the burn rate or get more cash in, so you have enough energy to get through this situation. But then they also set themselves a goal to be better after than they are before, because obviously if you don't have an existing business, you can actually start using your time effectively on other things. So they started building features for their tool that actually they always wanted but didn't have time to, because they were just in their go-to-market strategy so engaged. And they've done that while the business is actually down. They used smart solutions, as in some, not so decisive equity deals, to work with developers to actually create those. The second one they also looked at is, well, if our business is really sport because we're sports fanatics and it's bars, are there other ways where we can white label our tool and potentially also stay alive and build a business beyond our existing core distribution? And so they white labeled, and they actually start to focus on reality TV with their solution and esports, and they're just about ready to cut bigger deals with TV stations that actually broadcast those solutions. So they move from, it's a sport solution that is viewed in bars, into also a TV direct solution, and moving away from sport, which is not available right now, but into other formats that they can actually cater towards. So because of the fact nobody else is there, they just went out, made their product better, and tried to pivot in terms of, are there other channels that we can actually cater towards that either for the future plays a big role or no role anymore either, but at least it generates cash for us. And in short, they will be a winner post-crisis. So from what used to be, in their case, a complete hitting the wall because their existing distribution was kind of not existent anymore, they've used the time efficiently to actually improve the product, and at the same time pivoted their distribution into another channel that gives them a real good business foundation going forward. So if you had asked them 4 months before, is our strategy throughout a crisis clear, they would have said no, but they were really fast, tactically moving, and actually have created an absolute positive outlook for the company. And at the same time, Comcast picks them up too now for their normal channel distribution for TV, which is on top of it when sport kicks back, even better outlook and proposition. Second one is also a sports gig, but it's just a consumer goods product, and the company is called Lasso. It's in my view the best compression sock in the market. Obviously compression for apparel and socks is out there, but they are connecting really the medical and athletic world together. So their products are being, medically prescribed for recovery, and at the same time are used by athletes during their normal training and also performance regime anyways. They've grown nicely before COVID hits. So it was a company that, based on being a great product, actually had positive impact in the marketplace. Now COVID hits, and those guys say, well, what do we do? We still sell direct to consumer, obviously, we are our e-com machine, but is there anything else that helps us stay alive? Or maybe there's a bigger thing we can do. And they decided for themselves, well, it is also time for brand activity, meaning we can stand out as a community leader and do good. In the US where I'm based, obviously we've had the biggest amount of COVID death and obviously hospitalized people. So the first line responders and the people in hospitals, medical stuff, obviously have become the heroes of that big pandemic, because despite the infection rate, they actually help people on a daily basis. So people did long hours. So Lasso said, we want to be part of this, and they intro the buy one, give one to first responder strategy to people, which was accompanied by a marketing strategy or campaign, which was called Move with Compassion. They won awards for it, and they donated in this context to over 200 hospitals their product, because if you're a nurse or EMT, if you're on your feet the whole time, a compression sock that really does the job is actually a really, really important tool. It may not be as important as, let's say, a mask that covers you for the virus, but from a pure recovery point of view, having good socks that keep your blood circulation at a point and doesn't give you swollen legs if you run around and stand all day are actually really meaningful products. So this has given them a lot of awareness and positive awareness on one side. And then the other action, which I thought was also pretty interesting, they also were always out to look for partners. Now, in a time when everybody's stuck at home, either on a video conference, in a call, you at least know where everybody is. And obviously, given the daily routine in an office versus being at home, there's more time people had obviously at home. So they just harassed everybody that they wanted to deal with to build partnerships because they called them. And they got to people in a much easier way than they did actually before the COVID hit. So all the way to actually being able to fundraise, which has really been done successfully over the past 6 and by now 8 weeks. So they were able to put things in place that, given what they were doing as a company, gave them not just partners that actually help them leverage their business going forward, raised money, which actually gave them enough capital to go through this situation. And they were able to also become a brand that has much more awareness for good reasons than they ever were before. So like I said, it follows for me is like what used to be a cool, innovative product becomes also a meaningful brand during the time when you would least think that that's possible. So for me, that's another success story, how the time that is a tough time was used really smartly in terms of doing the right things, making decisions and being actively pursuing those that gets you to a better place post the crisis than you were actually in before the crisis. And again, has a lot to do with the fact that all the sock companies may have not done that. They have done this. So it's a much easier time to break through and create the positive impact that that they were after. Third project has nothing to do with sport, but has to do also with purpose. It's a customized, sustainable jewelry company. It's an online business. Obviously, this is all driven by, as much as I refer to purpose, by all consumers you're targeting that are millennials or younger. People in today's world are not just buying products, but more and more products that also have a brand story attached to it that is meaningful. Hence, purpose becomes a topic in this context. For this jewelry gig, it's actually twofold. One is customization. So if you want to get married or want to get engaged, you can actually create the ring for your fiance or vice versa, she for him, the way you want it. That's one thing that is quite cool, because not really many people allow this at a reasonable cost. The second one is really about, the tagline is yours, not mined. And mined is all about diamonds coming from the ground. Normally they have blood on them because there's a lot of exploitation, not just with regard to natural environment, but also people attached to it. Their diamonds are actually lab grown, which are exactly one-to-one comparable to mined diamonds, but do not have blood. So there's a lot of impact and purpose driven by creating a beautiful, unique piece of jewelry that also doesn't have any negative attachment that you're not interested, all the way to sustainability. Now, their business was nicely growing. They have an average ticket price of, I think, around $1,500. They have a concierge service where you're hooked up with that leads you through the design process, attached to social media, and have done excellent growth. Is not even a outside finance company, but self-financed. Now, COVID hits and you think, well, people will reduce spending very quickly because, ticket prices of that kind, luxury items. I remember 9/11 on my own front. Anything that was luxury just dived right away because people just save the money because they don't know how much money they have to spend, obviously, all the way to unemployment and so on and so on. So their decision was quite simple. They wanted to build trust and guarantee product delivery and authenticity of the story. They created social traffic, and to their biggest surprise, they didn't know that this would happen anyways. The instances of getting engaged, even if you can't have big weddings, and getting married is still the case. So the need for the product was still there. What they needed to build was also conversion bridges, meaning, okay, people have not as much money, let's give them financing possibilities, which are today done even through debit card companies that are supported by actually financing companies like Affirm or Afterpay that allow you to split your 100% transaction cost into different installments. In the case of Affirm, that actually works in line with also paying for it, so it's kind of a real credit. In the case of Afterpay, it's not even a credit. It actually is only a zero split of your 100% into 4 installments at 0% interest. So it allows you to actually split the big chunk of money into different payments. So with a relentless customer focus on their product offer and their communication, they've actually created May 2020 as their biggest revenue month in the history. So their smart way, their rightness of the product itself, their way of how they market it, the way they actually also applied financing possibilities, they've actually created the single biggest revenue month during the time when people were just at home. So distribution worked out, product was right, I can actually split the financing, I'm still getting engaged, I'm still buying them versus going elsewhere. Of course, they profited also from jewelry business in today's world is still very much an offline business. But as all stores were closed, you know, an online business still does a much better job. So I'm saying where I thought this could be actually, they could be also in a tough and challenging situation, they actually come out of this one better than they were before, and they will actually hit their original budget that they made for 2020, likely one of the very few companies that were able to do that on the startup side. So another good example of how you can actually get opportunity out of the crisis situation. Last one is the brown shoe company I wanted to talk to you about. This is about handcrafted brown shoes. You order them online. They're made to your, requirements, as in width, length. It's not a completely customized version, but it's handcrafted for you based on your input. And they actually created this business with the impact, with a insight in mind to create jobs in Guatemala. Those were people that used to be nonprofit guys that said this nonprofit thing doesn't work. We actually will work. We will create a for-profit business that actually also creates jobs. And because we will create a good company, we will be able to make this a very impactful proposition. If those guys had come to me with in a planning stage, I would have said, yeah, this sounds too complicated. I don't know, based on my experience, if this works. They came to me when they were already a fluorescent company, and I'm just in awe of what they've created in 3 years, from zero to a $1.5 million revenue, just virtue based on average ticket $250, just based on you getting a brown shoe that is made to your needs. And at the same time, you buy into the story of helping people getting employed, making more money than the average, and taking care of education for the kids, and so on and so forth. So it is a social impact company, and it, at the end of the day, for profit, but also does what on the southern border of the United States you actually need to do: create the jobs in order to reduce the amount of immigration that potentially comes into America, because those guys make their money. So really, it's one of the coolest places or companies that I'm involved with. Now they got hit by it, and you think, now is a person going to buy a brown shoe for $250 that within 7 days is on your doorstep? So they decided, again, the same thing: cut burn rate, manage cash, protect the employees. They had already 50 craftsmen that actually created the shoes. And the actions out of that coming is, well, if we want to protect that back office of our company as much as we can, we need to adjust marketing and messaging to the current reality. They created products and bundled packages to push revenue. So meaning accessorizing the actual shoe with all sorts of other leather products that aren't that expensive, but you can still sell at a reasonable margin, as in belts or bags are now put part of it. And that allowed to actually compensate a lower rate of shoe manufacturing, but be compensated by bundled deals that actually have taken over parts of the original business now. So they were able to stay afloat. They couldn't save all people, but the majority of their employees to actually survive through this, tougher time. And they will be coming out of this situation also fitter, because all the, business measures they put in place to become more profitable, to also buy materials at a cheaper rate, to get your FOBs further down, were actually also very meaningful. So the slimming down of a company that grew very fast at a time when you actually have the time to focus on this will make this company a much fitter company post-crisis too. So those are 4 examples. They all adjusted or created opportunity from a different angle, and they all will survive, which is the minimum requirement of the exercise, but very likely also in a much better shape post the crisis that we're currently going through. So bottom line, again, I talked about there's a crossroad. Are you just trying to be business minded to try to survive, close your eyes, put your head into the sand, or are you interpreting this crisis with a mindset of I can actually get to a better place when I start thinking about what will impact my company best in a way that I can now focus on while surfing through this time to be at a better place afterwards. Now, I try to put this together in terms of conclusions to just give you a little bit of generic sense of what I believe are key things to think about. Well, the first one still remains. There's obviously a business consideration you need to go through. If you only have money for 3 months, but you need to survive for 6 months, you need to adjust how you spend your money, and managing cash so that you don't run dry is obviously, a key priority. But like I said, I have even an example where money wasn't really that much of an issue, but could have been one. They actually even raised money through the time because they were able to present their case in such an impactful way that even the fundraising wasn't an issue during this tough time. Again, I said live up to the mindset that crisis means opportunity. Keep your customers central in your thinking. Again, if like Game On, you don't have a customer right now at the place where you went to market. You may have them elsewhere, and you can create a distribution towards them, and you're still an engaging proposition during this time. They've done that. So customer thinking is key. Define opportunities to go through the crisis, come out stronger, be creative about what it could be, your path that you can go on. It can be stepping on a break, make yourself better, or change your distribution, come up with a better product offering at the same time. There are all sorts of possibilities that you can actually come up with. Now, innovate, adjust, and pivot if needed is part of it. So being an innovator is not even a question that you need to be that, but adjusting your path or pivot if you need it short term, or even if that becomes a strategy, you should be open to that. You do not drive a corporation with 1,000 people and 2 billion revenue. You are in the position to actually do that. Big companies can't. The other thing is a cultural topic, also a leadership topic. You need to lead decisive every time. So leadership becomes much more apparent in crisis times than when things are okay. Because in crisis times, people look at you. And being decisive is one of the most important topics within this. If you're just postponing and trying to create more insight and more data around, a decision that you need to take, it will all take time. But you need to be on your toes to actually decide and move forward. And even if not everything is right, you can adjust at any given time. So decisiveness and agility in this process is another number one priority. Now, also, as I said, people look at leaders and CEOs and founders in times of crisis. I think it is mandatory to also create transparency. Don't pretend you have 12 months of financing if you only have 3 months. It's going to come out anyway. So you need to be communicating. Every crisis manager needs to be transparent in what he does. You need to talk about, here's the reality, but here's what we do. And and use humility while you do that. Be clear about, this is a situation we're all stuck with, and you're part of the team. You will not pay yourself more than you pay others, or you will not stick to your salary if at the same time you need to let others go for it. You're all in the same boat, and leaders and really future leaders are born in those situations. And again, there are other stakeholders you need to communicate to keep the trust going, whether it's investors you have already, absolutely, all the way to consumers. I mean, there's no issue with telling consumers, hey, we are challenged and this is what we're doing about it, and we hope we can count on you to keep us afloat. There's no other way of transparency and being able to tell people we're injured, but this is what we do about it. We need everybody's help. Again, realign company to be agile and efficient moving forward. If you've gone through a period of growth before, this is also the time where you can actually relook at your KPIs and see whether everything is efficient. How do you spend your marketing money if you still spend it? How have you spent it? Was it efficient enough? And what are the ways how you can actually improve it moving forward? So it's time to actually go diligently also into the company to actually take a look what can be done differently. Lastly, maybe as an example of a bigger company, I'm advising also, I don't know if you know Spartan obstacle races. It's the single biggest obstacle race and outdoor event company, actually, I think in the world by now. Those guys obviously got stuck with, they are very much event driven and sponsorship driven. There's no event. Well, the business hits the wall, similar to Game On. They've pivoted a company that has, I think, a revenue of somewhere between $100 and $150 million from being an event-driven company to being a content and merchandising-driven company during this big time. So they were able to compensate the lack of selling tickets very much so through selling, obviously, fitness equipment and fitness merchandising, while at the same time starting with 100% focus on becoming a true fitness content company, which offers so much more in the future as opportunity than just having events, meaning moving away from we're an event company to being a mindset company that is about unbreakable is another great example of how a pivot moves you from how you've done business in the past, but based on crisis, you don't have any other choice. And if you're fast, decisive, and agile, you actually can move your focus away while not leaving the territory of your business, just the actual focus on where you go and how you go to market. And you can actually, become successful, and you've opened up the world for much bigger things in the future than just being an event-driven company. Lastly, I want you to remember one sentence for sure. I really believe, and that is what I started this conversation with, companies are remembered for the good times. There's no doubt. If you think about Apple, how great of a company, and if you bought shares early, how happy you are about it. But really, those companies are defined by how they handle adversity. There would be no Apple story without being almost bankrupt, Jobs kicking back into the company and setting the infrastructure to be an innovative company that people care about. That was how they, that's what they defined by, that they think, different about how to create solutions like beginning of 2000 that actually brought them to who they are today, that brought them to 2007 when they came out with the iPhone and to iPads and so forth. It wasn't 2007, it was 2002. So keep in mind, this is the time for what you're doing that defines how you are perceived and how successful you can go through the next 10 years in creating a unicorn, a successful company, being able to fulfill your mission at a pace that is yours. And so that was what I wanted to leave you with. That last sentence, I think, is really important to digest. And I'm happy that I was able to at least share my thoughts and experiences with you at a time when this is, as important as it can be, given all the, unforeseen challenges we're going through, whether it's a pandemic here in the US. On top, it's obviously civil unrest based on everything related to George Floyd that got killed, only 5 weeks ago, with all the, demonstrations and so forth. Unemployment as an economy being down. So all those things are obviously a primary example towards what I was trying to convey to you guys of what I believe is important. So having said that, I hope it's not too long. We still have time. I just
Yes, we have.
I'm done with my monologue to you guys, and I'm happy to address questions that you have that I will be willing to obviously spend that time with you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Uli, for that. And as you mentioned, now the floor is open to you guys for every question that, that came in mind. I would like just to ask, since all of you have the ability to unmute yourself and open and close your cameras. When you ask a question, please open your camera so we'll see who you are. Please state your name and the company you're coming from so Uli will know who's on the side. And in terms of the lineup, if you want to ask a question, please use the raise hand button. So I'll see in general how many people want to raise hands, and I'll just, yeah, Michael, but the digital one. But, so I'll see who is interested in asking questions, and we'll go from there. Okay, so Michael, you can start.
Great. Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Uli, thanks so much for that. That was an incredible presentation. It's nice to meet you. My name is Mike Tversky, co-founder of Wet Sleeve. We're a wearable hydration company based out of New York. My question is around some of the fundraising conversations that you were talking about during your presentation. So obviously, there's a huge pivot for a lot of these companies, and a lot of these companies were able to do it successfully. But do you find that some of the companies that you mentor have a bit of a tricky discussion with the VCs as part of this chicken and the egg problem, right? Because they're trying to convey this new vision, the ability to adapt and pivot and to execute based on this new vision, but they don't necessarily have the financial resources to do it. So do you find that it's more about the founding team's history of execution coupled with how succinctly they were able to portray that vision, or how successful were they able to do that? Thanks.
That's a loaded question, Michael. Let me just first say, the institutional money is obviously a tougher catch because those guys are scared. Like you always think, most of the institutional guys are not rocket scientists. So for them, the same applies to what applies to you, mindset-wise. This is opportunity versus it's a threat. There are enough people out there that think it's a threat. At the same time, you've got a lot of sharks. That's more the equity world, so not so much maybe relating to startup. Sharks out there that just want to make cool deals because they're the smart guys right now floating through and see what company has problems and how can we cheaply buy it, have a good share in it, because then we can keep it afloat. And when they actually are back out there, they are actually making a huge multiple on their investment. So that's more equity world than it is VC world. So I believe you're right with regard to, is it difficult to find the right VCs that potentially step up to the plate at this time? I think it's difficult, but there are some that do that. The Game On guys, not Game On guys, the Lasso guys, they are very well networked. impactful presentations have led to institutional money because they're ready for that. Now, in the biggest case, I think before VC becomes relevant, the way I look at that business, you need to have $1 million revenue to actually be a candidate for a VC company. So if you don't have $1 million on your sleeve, they actually don't trust you, because 80% of the ones that don't have the $1 million don't get to the $1 million. So the $1.5 million is kind of the business KPI that they look at. Once you are able to hit that without giving your company away, they actually take a look at you. So your job, if you're not at $1 million or $1.5 million, is much more angel related, meaning friends of the family on one side, which should be a doable proposition if you've got access to it. But then also angel networks that are the ones I have seen smart people in angel networks stepping up to the plate because they see through the clutter. They're used to looking at companies and trying to assess the potential before they are $1 million big, because that's where their home is. That's the only reason why they're investing at that point, because they get a good share for little investment money. Those are the guys you should hit up, I believe, earlier based on where you are in the life cycle of your company. If you are $1 million, $1.5 million, then obviously VCs are, the primary target. You need to select and need to build a network for who in your business is actually interested in your type of business idea, and how do you get them romanced is a job of impactful presentation, explaining how a crisis is an opportunity for you, and being able to twist kind of the gig around in a way that actually opens up their listening. I'm not saying that all of being, kind of a mindset guy that sees opportunity gets you to the solution easier. What my point with that is, you have still the same target group, but there are not so many people doing what you're doing. That is your opportunity, right? So it's the difference between red ocean and blue ocean. Red ocean, all the sharks and startups are down there trying to hit the same food chain, and there are less sharks right now. So it's more comparable to a blue ocean, because quite a few people are just paralyzed, have run out of money, or are still scrambling to actually get to the next month. And the big guys you potentially not yet competing with, they are so indulged with, trying to figure themselves out. Their problem of laying off people or not laying off people are so much bigger that they're not really your competition right now either, because they have so many issues they need to deal with. That is the opportunity. But I can't give you the perfect launch pad for it. So I don't know that about your business. I do believe hydration is good. Are you hydration drink or hydration pill?
We're a wearable sleeve on the forearm that has an embedded hydration reservoir that you can drink from your arm without stopping what you're doing. So it's kind of innovative in that way. Not really a lot of comps out there.
Okay, interesting. Hey, you should talk to Essex, because that's a running company. They may be really involved in marathons, which is your primary target. And
Totally.
I think we may have one Essex guy on the
Yeah,
phone.
if we only had someone here from that.
Okay.
Hi,
Right here.
Gerard.
Let's
Good.
follow up.
We'll connect. Yes, thank you so much, and thank you, Uli. That was very helpful. I appreciate that.
I have $1 million in my back pocket.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Moving on to Alexei. Alexei, I saw you raise your hand. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi there. I'm Alexei from Finland, representing Her Technology, and we are bringing interactive plugins to sports streaming platforms. And my question, as we are working on technology side, is how do you see the value of protecting your IPR through patents, especially when it's kind of a twofold thing, like it takes time and money, and you can use the time and money on your business or protecting your business, but does it make any sense before you really have a business? So it's about like the value of protecting your IPR on technology space.
Yeah, that's another loaded question. And I don't know enough, I have to say, based on your intro, to give you really a clear answer. So there are two trains of thought. Either you're fast, you're good financed, you have a good partner potentially that keeps you grow fast, so you can start owning a market or a niche market quite well and quite fast. That could be a strategy without protection. The other one is protect yourself. If you've got a unique proposition that can be, based on, software being open source whatsoever, can be copied fast, and you don't have strong partners on the side that back you up, I would say protect yourself. My gut always would say more protection is better than less protection. Specifically in the tech world, where sometimes it's tough to see how big is my competition, but it is a challenge of not being able, like, if you can guarantee agility and fast speed to enter and conquer the market, you'll be eaten up. I mean, what stops anybody from doing what you do if they just assess you well enough? I mean, getting people out of your organization, blah blah blah. I mean, there are enough ways of making your life miserable. So I am by virtue of survival a friend of protecting yourself as good as you can. And trust me, so I've worked for Adidas and Reebok. Gerard works for Essex. I've worked on the innovation side with my own people and then also with third parties. If you ask me, am I, as a big company, supporting the little guy I work with? Yes, of course. But I'm selfish. I'm doing that for my own interest, not just for your interest. So if you work on partnerships where you don't have much to leverage, you're being used. It's reality. It's not nothing you can actually be not happy about. You'll be used. And so if you don't have anything that actually protects your business by itself or your idea, I think I'd be gut-wise more concerned than optimistic. However, there are enough examples in my world where I thought, oh shit, there's no protection to this. Like you guys may know Allbirds, shoe company that wasn't there 5 years ago. They came to me 5 years ago and said, well, we want you as an advisor. And I said, I've done your shoes myself with different brands. I don't think you're so unique, but I like you guys. I work with you. I did not invest. My worst mistake in my investment career, because those guys are the shoe, at least of the country here. Everybody runs around with them. And I would have never thought that they would have been able to actually pull this off. And there's no protection really, other than a bit of their outsole. But that's, I think, part of the manufacturer versus it's not even Allbirds. So there are examples where non-protection still gives you great success. I would say, specifically in the tech world, I'd be more careful.
Sure, thank you. And by the way, I sent you a LinkedIn invitation. Hope we can discuss later on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you cash rich? Because my hourly rates are really, really high. Just kidding. Actually, I'm
He
not
shut
kidding.
on the camera for
Yeah.
almost got a stroke.
Yeah, it's good. No problem. No problem.
It's
Hey,
okay, Alex. Yeah.
Good presentation.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Please, guys, you can raise your hand. Because I saw a couple of hands that went up and then went down, so I don't know if the questions were answered.
Uli, I have a question for Uli.
Yes, please.
Uli, hi. My
Yes,
name is
Greg.
Greg Burton. I'm the head of UB Sports. We're a social media and training resource for athletes in all sports over here in New York. And I have a question that goes back to your Adidas days. I was a fencer back in high school and college, and yours was one of two brands that actually had fencing shoes. So I've been an Adidas fan since I was 12, so I'm a big fan of what you've done. How did you decide to take on the lower profile sports as opposed to just the big sports?
Oh, Well, first off, I'll be already part owner of your company, because UB Sport is me too. Uli Becker is UB, so UB Sports, we need to work together somehow.
We definitely will.
Yours should be named GB Sports, really, if your first name is Greg. So you stole my abbreviation. Having said that, I have nothing to do with that. Adidas was an Olympic company in its core from the beginning. That actually goes back all the way to the founder Adi Dassler. And I don't want to scare Essex away now with my little brand story here, but seriously speaking, Adi Dassler, the founder, always was about making athletes better. And so he was a cobbler that created shoes for athletes that needed it, whether it was screw-in studs at the 54 World Championship in Switzerland for the German team, or spikes, screw-in spikes. So Olympics were always the biggest sports event other than football. So that is the history of Adidas being in there. I'm actually, and we always made it a specific topic to be involved in all those sports. I remember we did a marketing campaign, I think somewhere, it could have been around Sydney in 2000, that said 24 of 26. At that time, we're involved in 24 of the disciplines, Olympic disciplines of 26. The two that we weren't in was sailing and horseback riding. So anything related to horses and sailing at that time, even though apparel we had for sailing, but we said we are part of 24. It was always a big cultural topic, and every now and then, because those vertical sports don't mean business, there was always sometimes from the business the topic of we shouldn't be involved, it just costs us money, and it's just ridiculous to spend so much money in sports, all the way to Winter Olympics when it comes to biathlon, cross-country skiing, bobsled, luge, you name it. And we always said when the company was really brand-led, we always said, no, this is a must because it's part of the DNA.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I would say it's pretty much post 2016 Olympics in Rio was the first time when I noticed that, based on the fact that it's much more a business company in today's world than just a brand that creates a business, which I think is the right way of doing things. They have actually said no to quite a bit of vertical fringe sports that used to be part of the DNA. So when you look at track and field, it's Nike, there's still some Adidas, but there's much more Under Armour. Winter Olympics, there's much more Under Armour than actually it used to be an Adidas dominated sport event by itself. And so they've actually said no to quite a few of those investment sports ever since, which I think is a complete stupid mistake because it leaves room open for others to come in. So I did a fencing shoe myself in equipment beginning of the 90s still. I don't even know if they still have fencing shoes. So I don't know. That's business deciding versus brand ruling, which I think is a tough situation. And I actually think Nike is still closest to that in today's sporting goods context to actually be engaged still in everything.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly my strategy. We were thinking about how many sports we should handle in UB Sports. And I was thinking we'll take on 10 or 15 sports, but I cross-train. I'm a sailor. I used to be a pro sailor. So I actually use Adidas shoes for sailing now. And I think they're actually kayaking shoes.
Greg, I just would, in your case though, it's a different world. You're a startup. If I was you, I much rather want you to own one sport before you do 16. Mm-hmm. Because the way I look at startups, it's really about being able to be meaningful at one thing that you leverage for the next step. And if you try to own 16 sports, I don't think the world understands that, or you reach enough people. Right. But being a leader at something allows you to speak with more confidence about something else. So as a startup, I just would want you to check that out in today's world. Don't go too wide, be deep and own one thing, because I think it is your best argument to own something else.
That's great.
Also from a financing point of view.
Of course.
Okay. But I'll check you out. I want to see, I think we are connected on LinkedIn already because I think I saw UB Sport somewhere already.
Yep.
Okay. Anything
Yeah,
else?
Greg is everywhere. Okay, so we really actually exceeded the time in 1 minute, but if someone has like final question, please use this opportunity. And I want to jump in.
There's no female question yet. That is not right.
Yes, I agree, but still, you know, we'll give Andrea the opportunity to do it regardless of his gender. Please, you raised your hand,
Okay.
right?
Can I make you a question?
Ah, wonderful, Lucia. Yeah.
This is Lucia from Gazella. You're specialized in sustainability, and our app offers a training program from women based on their menstrual cycle, their objectives, and their goals. My question is, how do you as a brand like ours, would you embrace the sustainability within your, your core values, taking into consideration that one of the main things of sustainability is not just many people talks about, about environment and all of these things, and one of the most important things is that the women have are healthy, because then we could have kids and all of these things, no? So at the end of the day, that's sustainability. So how could you link sustainability with an app like ours? Thank you.
Well, I think, Lucia, thanks for the question. I think you just gave yourself the answer already. Sustainability is not just about environment per se, but it's also a human topic. And I don't know enough about your app now to really be a good judge on that. But if your app is about making people healthier, which normally every fitness-oriented company is, then that's by itself already a sustainable proposition. Now, if it has a purpose attached to it, you could argue part of your business model could be to give back. I don't know what the right partner for you would be in this context, but I think that would be something that I would just potentially extend your sustainable thinking with when it comes to fitness. And let me give you an example. At Reebok 15 years ago, when we started thinking about what's the strategy for Reebok, and we came back to the point that number one, the female customer is a real important one, because she actually made Reebok sizable when fitness became a mass movement for women in the 70s, 80s, with aerobics and all that stuff. And fitness by itself is kind of the grounding formula for Reebok. We said we want to be a fitness company. And the actual purpose of Reebok at that time was a personal one. Before Adidas acquired, Fireman was all about human rights. So we had a big human rights anchor at Reebok, but that was more personal than organic to the company. And when we took over, when Adidas took over, and we started with the Reebok people to build the new strategy of the brand, after 2 years, we said we want to be a fitness company, we want to be a powerhouse in fitness. And how do we actually create purpose? Because our people need that. Beyond being fitter themselves, we actually went out and just said, we're going to bring sport back to elementary school kids, because in America, the first thing that is cut of budgets is kind of sport, PE, and specifically in elementary schools. However, there are enough studies that say that in no place is sport more important than in elementary school age, because you not just physically become better, you begin to develop social skills via sport and community. And academically, you actually also create better results. So if you do sport in the morning and you write a test at 11 o'clock, if you're between 10 and 12 years of age, your results will be better. That's proven. There's not even a discussion. But still, school doesn't have sport. So we created a infrastructure called Box that actually brings PE back into elementary schools around the country on a volunteer basis at 7 o'clock in the morning before school starts. Why did we do that? Obviously, it's a purposeful thing, and everybody's concerned about the well-being of their kids. And at the same time, those kids actually generate or create the next generation of customers. So if you grow up with Reebok at elementary school age, good chance if we don't screw it up with marketing when you're 15 or 14, that you actually are used to our brand before you're used to Asics, Adidas, Nike, and so forth. So we created the purpose that is actually organic to the company that over time becomes a big story, because obviously you don't have that from one day to another, but once you give it enough development time, it becomes a very meaningful asset of the company, and is a reason why people are engaged, because they can give their own volunteer time to that same occasion. And when people hear about it, they say that's a cool thing to do. And so it is really organic to the company. It's not so much about, let's say, sustainability as in such. The planet is better at that, but our customers are taken care of, and a new generation being educated in the context of our brand. And at the same time, we have human sustainability that actually is meaningful. So that's a big example in this context. And you need to take a look at that, how meaningful, how human sustainability can be, more meaningfully also integrated into the company's strategy.
Thank
that
you.
Makes sense.
It's your point is really interesting, because something that we have seen is that we are right now focusing older people or older women, and if you start with kids, with girls, when they start to have the cycle, and you start to educate them on how to train, taking this into consideration, then in the future they will also use, and follow these patterns, and that it will be healthier for them. So definitely, this is something that we have to tackle, and we have to work with. Thank you very much.
Lucia, I think, and that is for everyone, when I said at the very beginning, people, when I, during my professional corporate career, it was about brands being cool, sexy, and you sell stuff if your product is right. Anything. And I held a supply chain webinar with Babson 2 days ago. So in preparing for that, every function of companies and the markets overall, not just US, also Europe and Asia, maybe to a slightly different degree, it really has a lot to do with the fact that as a company, you need a product that is spot on, but you need to stand for more than just being a product company. And your history, where you come from. I believe purpose, whether it's sustainability or anything else, social impact, doesn't make any difference. Everybody from millennials down and all the younger generations will become more or are already in the process and will become more open to companies that mean more than just the product. And I believe if you're a startup where you're actually shaping and forming your company today, you need to have it part of your thinking and part of your strategy, because if you don't have that, you likely have less success, or may have actually not even a sustainable journey as a company, because it is what people dig and what people are actually interested in. Leaving money with companies that are actually bigger than their product, and in a positive way. All the way to, like I just gave that supply chain example from 2 days ago, all the supply chain companies you deal with, they are actually all about sustainability. One of the key trends within supply chain is not just the recyclable packaging, other than the product itself. It also goes to big suppliers and 3DLs that create e-truck, transportation. Now, why? Because people care about it. And so even the decision-making process within the companies that goes towards supply chain already is driven by sustainability to whatever shape or form. So keep that in mind. There's no company, I believe, that can get away without, and sport by itself has a great chance to actually create a purpose for the company that actually is bigger than what your core business is actually supposed to deliver. So I think there was one more question. Zvika, do we have time?
Okay, just to let you know, guys, Uli, we have one last question, and I see actually we have a couple of questions, but we're already beyond time. So I suggest, Andre, I'll let you ask the question. Okay, let's be quick and efficient, and we'll continue from there, please.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thanks, Juli, for your presentation. I'm André from Schizo. We want to let our planet a better place, and with help with fishermen, we collect plastic from the ocean, transform that plastic to textile, and then we produce handmade and customized sneakers. And because your background and your knowledge, I want to ask a question and advice too. I want what things we have to avoid as we grow an e-commerce, a custom, and an e-commerce and a custom brand of sneakers, for example.
Oh, that's an open question. Well, first of all, you answered, my purpose question with, you obviously deal with sustainability when it comes to creating recyclable products, at least in apparel. I think there's no short answer to this. I think there is there's definitely the requirement to create uniqueness in what you do. My whole footwear world, or my footwear experience, has a lot to do with the fact that there's enough stuff out there. And if you want to stick out, you need to create something that at least has a less overlap with what is out there already, right? Whether it's the last, whether it's the shape of the shoe. So it's not just the design, also a functionality play. And on top of that, a story that, potentially is a circular economy product, meaning where I believe, and I may be a little bit too early with this, where I believe in terms of sporting goods, the future lies is telling your designers, or your designer, if you have one, or to yourself, if you're the designer, to create a shoe and a piece of apparel that has the taken into pieces already in mind, meaning our supply chain or our value creation works with, we create something and we think all the way to the customer, and then the only thing that we're concerned about is potentially durability, but then we don't give a shit about it anymore, which is part of the problem of our value creation. It's not a circle, which is what I like about 3D printing. I can print a shoe, you can send it back, I put it into the grinder, and I can reuse the material that I got back to actually create a new shoe. And so my point is, and I don't know if a small company can attack it, but I would want the story in footwear and apparel to be circular. If you use only recyclable materials, you're not sorting out the problem. You're just using what you maybe found again, but you're creating the same problem again. And what needs to be happening, in my view, is that design, and people are smart. In design, we need to create a story that already takes into the consideration when the product is not being used anymore. And that if I buy it, I know I ship it back, and they know something good is going to happen with it. It's not going to be in my plastic dump here in Hingham, which then I feel good about it, but then it's shipped to Malaysia and kicked into the water from there. So my point is, if the first company that creates product that is able to bring it to life in a circular way, maybe made to measure or made to order at the beginning, so that you don't go into inventory measures that are too expensive and will drag too much money. But if you're able to build a community that is about circular economy in that product, I think you really make it. That would be the biggest thing that I believe sets the world apart, which is the big story that becomes meaningful. But I don't have a real quick answer to this. This is a much bigger discussion.
Okay, thank you. We have a end of life program for our products, and we are producing made to order right now. So it's a little bit what you are telling we have to do.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Big task.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that. Actually, we have one more question of Michael, who has been waiting patiently, and it really depends up to you. if you have a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
of minutes.
I'm still off.
So
I'm still fine. I need to be done in 5 minutes.
okay, good.
Yeah, so I will be quick. My name is Michael, and I work for GG Predict, which is an esports platform, esports analytical platform. And I wanted to ask you if you see any like future potential for cooperation of traditional sport brands with esports, because I think that it could be bigger, it could be faster, but I don't see, any development right now.
I don't have the answer for that either, but I could see it, yes. If all the sport teams, the pro teams that I'm interested in, all have esport teams now too, so that's the most logical partnership that actually comes to life. Will sport companies have to figure out how they engage? I say yes. It's just not an easy one based on the fact that, any Adidas, Essex, New Balance, Nike lives off selling, product, whether it's footwear, accessories, or apparel. In terms of esport, you don't have that. So as long as I don't, create the jerseys being licensed out, and if they're used in a game, your team wears Adidas, and I'll make license or royalty money with it. It's the business model needs to be created for that overall. It won't be enough to just say the people that play with it actually wear my brand, and that's why I want to be involved. So my point is the business case for that, for the sports companies, needs to be created in order to really also seriously engage. If that's not the case, it can only be a marketing campaign, meaning, okay, it's cool to have esport teams, let's say, and I want one too, and I'm Adidas, and so I've got one. But it doesn't. I don't know if those sports companies will actually spend a lot of time and money for such an engagement. I don't know. I think the business case needs to be created to make sure that those guys can engage. No matter what, if esport becomes such a consumer driving proposition, then they will find ways to be engaged, and in the weakest way as being an advertiser or something.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, Uli, so thank you very much for the valuable information, the patience you had, for answering and really taking the time for each of the companies. Of course, following the session, you guys, everyone will get the recording so you could see it. We also, as usual, send a quick feedback form just to know how good Uli was. Of course, it's anonymous, so you can say whatever you want. Kidding. But it is always important for us, to upgrade and improve. So I'd like to thank everyone here, and of course also to Borja and Gerard that have joined us, who are the program directors of the Parallel Verticals. And looking forward to see you all next week on Monday. Just as a heads up, you got an invitation and all the information from Eleanor. But next Monday, we have a very special session. This is actually the beginning of a seminar that you will be participating with 3 parts. And next Monday is the first part. And this is something that we are trying for the first time. So this is also exciting for us. It will be conducted, as I said, on 3 sessions. The first session will be 3 hours, okay? Because this is an actual workshop. It's a different scope. It's not just a webinar. It's a different scope. It's a workshop. And the person who is leading that is really been doing that all over the world for many, many years. And I strongly encourage you, to address it as an opportunity. So to take the time. Uli, I think that you need to leave. This is why you raise your hand. Okay.
Yeah, but let me just say, I see Simon Perryman. I just put up Simon, how are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm doing well, thanks. Good to see you. Thanks for the talk.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So just go back on that. So please secure the time, be ready. We ask for some things like, pen and paper, which might sound a little bit obsolete, but these are the requests of the mentor, and I think it makes sense. Personally, for me, I love to write things. I get to remember better. But again, this is a different thing, so it's very important for us to be there and for you to join in the right state of mind, be prepared, and we would love to get your feedback on that. Because if it's going to work the way we plan it's going to work, it's going to be really meaningful.
Yes. Will it make sense that maybe not only, let's say, more than one person per company are there? Because I assume that this is going to be beneficial not only for the, let's say, the CEO or whoever it is, but actually for as many as possible. Would that be the case or not necessarily?
No, yeah. You're talking about this the workshop?
The workshop, yeah.
Yeah, everyone. That's that's actually a good comment which relates to everything we do. Okay. Currently, all the emails that we have are the ones that you've submitted during your application, unless someone sent us a private email that asked, please add these guys for my team. Okay, so now it's a good thing, actually. Thank you, Bocha, for that. If you would like us to add additional members of your companies to the follow-up sessions, to the workshops, to anything we do, of course, with pleasure. That's the beauty of having a virtual event. There are no limitations. So please send us an email to myself and Eleanor, and we'll make sure that everyone from your team will join all the sessions. Okay? So we invite everyone. The more the merrier, and I think it's also good for your team as well. Thank you, Bocha, for that.
No problem. And as we can just another mention, we are in discussion internally within Hype, etc. You will see different formats of sessions. So just a heads up to the audience here. Obviously, there will be generic webinars. There will be per vertical webinars. There will be webinars that they are more like this one, in which there's a panelist or a keynote speaker presenting with few Q&As. There will be panelist sessions in which there will be a few people from the industry just sharing some knowledge. It will be maybe a little bit more dynamic, if you want to call it, or more questions during the session. There will be different formats, so be aware of that. There will be we are also discussing about potentially inviting more people, not only the program cohort, but also part of the partners, mentors, and MVTs. This is something that we are discussing internally, so I'm not confirming that, but just to let you know that it will not be sometimes only you. So be aware of that you will be also, maybe when you raise a question, when you're presenting yourself, when you're even pitching for 1 minute, you will be pitching not only to the program cohort, not only to high people or to the keynote speaker, but potentially to other people in the ecosystem. So just those details.
Thank you for that. Good addition.
Yeah, thanks. Nothing else.
Okay, so I wish you all a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. And enjoy the rest of the day, the night, the afternoon.
Nice day.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.